Germany. There were key figures who actually think of, okay, let me collect the products of popular people's culture, understand how they think, and then we find a way to use their ordinary culture to teach them what we want them to know. So I collect folk stories, but change the meaning of these folk stories a bit as a way to educate them some new values. So Jacob and William Grimm, 格林童話嘅格林兄弟。The Grimm brothers go and collected a lot of stories from the people, like Little Red Riding Hood, right? Goldilocks and the Three Bears, the Three Little Pigs. They took these stories from the people. But at first, it was not the version you study today. It's a lot more bloody, a lot more sly, a lot more political, a lot more like how ordinary people would deal with problems. But they think, no, we don't want people to be like that. We don't want people to have too much sex because then they don't wake up in time to go to work. We don't want people to kill each other when, as the best way to solve a problem. We don't want people to use all these kind of sly tricks against each other. We want them to be very honest workers, obedient workers. So let's change the meaning of some of these stories. So let me give you one example, Three Little Pigs. At first, the Three Little Pigs was not about, at first the Three Little Pigs story, hundreds of years ago, okay, by the time they come to the collection of the Grimm brothers, was that you need to be very careful because there are predators everywhere in the world. You need to find the best way to protect yourself and to kill your enemy. Right, so the Three Little Pigs, straw house is not a good idea. Even wooden house is not a good idea. You need a very protective house of bricks. And when you trap the wolf that wants to eat you, boil it and eat the wolf. Right? You don't want your workers to think that way. They will boil the manager of the factory. Right? So the story changed, and the moral of the story changed. Now they added the good pig works hard and he built a house of bricks. And that's why he defends himself. He works hard. The other two pigs are lazy. They just use wood and straw, and they don't protect themselves well because they're lazy. That's teaching industrial workers to be hardworking, right? And you don't boil and eat the wolf anymore. You put the wolf in a barrel and roll him down the hill. Right? That means you can fire. You can ask your boss to fire the manager, but you don't eat him. You don't kill him. Right? That's how they modified folk tales in order to teach and cultivate and civilize the urban industrial population. That's what they were doing. Okay? Now, the real story, let me tell you one story from Hong Kong that taught me what the actual Three Little Pigs are like nowadays. 10 years ago, almost more than 10 years ago, mid-1990s, there were people living on the rooftops of the 40,000 buildings in Hong Kong, 天台屋, squatters. Because all the squatters were driven out from the hillside and the best urban areas. Best urban areas are used to build public housing and factories. So all the squatters, where do they go? The government didn't build enough public housing for everyone. 公屋輪候冊10幾萬上，係咪? So they have way less public housing to house everyone. So people who cannot afford to buy and rent a place to live and are not yet given a public housing, squatter on top of all the skyscrapers in Hong Kong. 4萬棟香港大廈上面有天台屋. Over 200,000 population living in that condition. They are very hardworking. They're just paid very little. So, and how do they start living? They start building a house of cement with a toilet and an air conditioner on top of the building. They started building a house of bricks. Now, the government wants now to redevelop that building to help the property owners downstairs. So they kick these people out and force them to live into temporary housing and made of wood. They are still very hard working. And then the government don't want to deal with them anymore and kick them out into the streets. So they protest, they sleep in the streets, they start using a tent that's canvas and straw. And they're still very hard working. See? So this is the way we study culture to understand the whole history of policy dynamics and how people react to it. So culture matters. Culture matters because you understand what's really going on in your society and how you are really being taught and manipulated. And that reality is not neutral. Reality is filtered by how you're taught to understand it. Which means your idea of reality can be changed when you change your filters. And when you analyze how your understanding of reality is filtered. That's very important in doing realistic cultural policy that actually makes sense to people and will not get a lot of resistance and hatred and everything. You need to really talk to the real needs and conditions of the city and people. And you need to analyze culture to do that. If you do not learn to do like the kind of historical cultural analysis I just done with the 3 Olympics, if you don't do that, you would be a very lousy policy maker. You won't be able to do cultural policy well. You will be like any other official doing policy that doesn't make sense and everybody hates and creates more problem than it solves. Okay? So this is the whole rationale behind this. Now, and also, how do you see from this story of the development of the idea of popular culture, how people start to learn to manipulate the difference between high art and popular culture? In the 1500s, medieval times, and early Renaissance, Peter Burke was telling us history. The upper class despise the common people, but they share the same culture. They go to the same play. They listen to the same music. But by the 1800s, during the Industrial Revolution, they have ceased to participate in popular culture together with the ordinary people and the peasants. And they were in a process of rediscovering the folk people, ordinary culture as exotic. And because during industrialization, the new upper class, which is the capitalists, all moved to the city. They are no longer the landed gentry that own a lot of land in the rural areas and go to shoot their turkeys every day. They come to the city, and they no longer share the popular culture with the illiterate peasants. And when the workers come to the city, they no longer share the same cultural space with the capitalists. Okay. So there's a split there. And the farther away they are from the people, the more they imagine the people's culture as very, very cute. The people's culture become something they admire as they're so naive, they're so simple, they're so cute. And it becomes like what you do when you go to Shenzhen and go to this place where you see that all the 50-something different ethnic groups in China dancing for you. And that dance is supposed to be the dance of their marriage. And they're dancing it every day. They're getting married every day because of you. And that's the new attitude. The new attitude. Now, but these people they admire are imaginary and idealized understanding of the peasants, and not the real peasants, right? Not the real living people they need to deal with every day, whom they actually despise, and how snobbish they are, how they look down upon these people. I can quote, for example, Herder. This idea: people does not mean the rebel in the streets, which never sings or creates, but rather screams and mutilates true folk songs. That's how they look at the workers in the factories. They are rebels in the streets. They're not people, they are things.